Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, All In Health and Wellness. If you're looking for a health coach, you're looking for a sports performance coach, you're looking for nutrition guidance, like for instance, a meal-by-meal plan that will help you understand how to eat. It will teach you how to eat, and it will give your body, your cells, the proper nutrition to feel great and be able to perform at your best, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. If you're looking for those things, you're looking for the key to improve your sports performance, both from a nutrition standpoint and an exercise physical standpoint and a mental standpoint as you approach your athletic event. All In Health and Wellness is able to help in these areas. Go to allinhealthandwellness.com and you'll find the contact information for how to get in touch with them and get started on the plan that will improve your life.
So thank you, Sandy, for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Of course. So, we were just talking off camera and getting to know your story a little bit. And I think this is like, for my listeners, typically, yes, I have like an expert from a medical field or a holistic approach to healing your body from within on your own, like with coaching from a holistic practitioner who is outside of like the traditional healthcare system. And as we talked about, like that's really a sick care system,
Yes.
They're not trying to make you well. But you've lived it. And from your story, like your journey, like from pretty extreme, right? And I can relate a little bit from an athletic standpoint. I've had a doctor tell me I'm never going to run again. And this was 10 years ago because of different injuries that I've had. And in March, I won a national championship running.
Wow.
Like, so it's like, age group wise. So there's definitely things that you need to hear from your own body. And it sounds like you were in tune with that, with the coaching from someone who can look at it and go like, no. They've got it wrong if you look at the correct way of looking at it. Right. And so like,
exactly.
Like, I know we went through this off camera, but tell us a little bit about like the cancer journey and how your approach mentally has to go into it to be able to actually overcome some of the things that doctors are going to tell you. Nope, statistically, you're done. You're out. You're ball game over.
I think because, people don't understand, nor do they prepare you when you are diagnosed with cancer. The first questions you have is, what's the first step? Then is what I'm doing the best available? Right. I mean, that is, like, well, what do I have to compare this to? What are my options? And most people don't have any resources, and you don't even know what your health insurance plan covers until you're in it.
Yeah.
And this became a whole crusade for me because nobody prepares you for when you're diagnosed, and nobody prepares you for when you make it through the gauntlet of the regiment. Yeah. What happens next? And that's the biggest thing that I have discussions with former cancer patients is you're just left to be within purgatory in that first 5 years of being diagnosed. And now you're so far in remission.
Yeah.
But see, I was cured. There's a difference between being cured and in remission. And I think the first thing is people have to erase the tape of when you're meeting with the professionals, because doctors have their place, surgeons have their place. I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for my surgery.
Right.
But then it was the next step was up to me. What am I going to put in my body that's going to not only kill the cancer, but rebuild my immune system at the same time? And that just made sense to me. Right. I believe you have to do things that are going to stack the odds in your favor, but I went to Mayo Clinic and I went to Sloan Kettering. When I asked them questions about diet, nutrition, environment, stress, no one had a plan for me. I had colorectal cancer, stage 4 colorectal cancer. They said, my one doctor in specialist, the ball specialist in Sloan Kettering said, diet has nothing to do with it. Nutrition has nothing to do with it. You take your 6 months of chemo and radiation. And then he went like this, who have you been talking to?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, what? These are honest questions
Yeah.
about diet nutrition where I'd already met with Dr. Prado at Invita. And so I'm like going, well, he's telling me I need to change my diet. I went
Right.
completely organic, only wild caught fish, lots of organic fruits and vegetables, and the lower fruits in sugar, because
Right.
I need to alkaline my body. I need to get
Right.
my body back in fighting shape. It just needs help. And the thing is, you don't get sick overnight. It takes
Right.
years to get sick.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to, most people think, oh yeah, in 6 months or whatever your protocol, your regimen is, that you're going to be just fine. I'm going to do this for, no, it's a lifestyle change.
Yep.
You have to treat the whole body, but I'm telling you, the most important part of healing is your faith. Your faith first. You cannot believe what the doctors are telling you. You can take what they're saying, but you have to compartmentalize it over here. This is all they know. But ultimately, it's God who tells us when decides when he brings us home.
Yep.
And so I knew that if I did what my Dr. Prado at Invita Medical Center was telling me to do, I had a shot. And
Yeah.
I could stack the odds in my favor. So I would drive to the Mayo Clinic, do my chemo and radiation there. Then I drive 20 minutes across the street. I luckily live in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And I'd go and sit for 5 to 7 hours with Dr. Prado. I did that for a year and a half.
Wow.
Now people understand, like, well, how did you could afford that? No. Let me talk to you about this. Isn't it sad that we get a diagnosis of an aggressive cancer, and now our life-changing or life-saving decision is based on what we can afford or what we can't,
Right.
what we can't.
Yep.
That to me is a crime.
Yeah.
That to me is criminal. Everyone should have access to the best of both worlds, of integrative and the traditional medicine, because we need them. You need both. But unfortunately, the integrative understands that.
Yeah.
But the conventional 100-plus-year-old system is deep ingrained because there is no money in a cure.
Right.
So I started, when I would leave Invita, I started questioning my head of radiology, my head of oncology. I said, well, you've been doing this for 30 years. You tell me, how much radiation have you taken? Dead quiet. How much chemo have you taken? Have you ever taken a week's worth of chemo? No. I said, have you given this to any of your family members? No. I said, well, you know cancer's on the rise. So what are you doing to set yourself up so you never get cancer? So you don't have to undergo what I'm undergoing every single day, because I had first and second degree burns internally from the chemo and radiation combo. It was killing me.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about how barbaric this is.
Oh, yeah.
That here we are 120 years later, and we're still doing chemo and radiation. That's their only solution. And they say they do address the nutrition. No, they're telling cancer patients to go on Ensure. And
right.
all this sugar, and nobody addresses the diet, not even with colon cancer.
Yeah.
And that's when I went, whoa, something is way off here. When I have one doctor that's saying adamant, you do not stray off this. No sugar, no wheat, no dairy, no caffeine. You're done. You understand that. That's done. Okay. And these guys are saying diet has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's changed 23 years later, but I don't think it's changed that much.
No, it hasn't. Well, and it's funny because I actually, so I'm dealing with an Achilles injury, and I went in today for a follow-up with my orthopedic doctor, who did an injection to try and help the platelet, basically like help a healing process speed up. And so I went in for a 4-week checkup, and he actually was like, you know what? And I've known him for a little bit. He's like, you know, I know what you do, but I've never really looked at it and go like, wait a minute, he's a health and wellness guy. And he told me, he opened up, he's like, I've been dabbling in like getting out of the traditional and going into the alternative with a colleague of mine. And we're looking at that. And we started talking about that kind of stuff. And he was like, and I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. And we can talk about that. And we can go down nutrition and that. And when I said nutrition, he was like, dude, you know what's crazy? He goes, you would be surprised how many people, if they actually knew that their primary care physician has zero training in nutrition. He's like, they get through all the medical school and they have zero training in nutrition, but yet they're trying to tell people how, and they have zero. And I was like, yeah. He goes, that's why it's so appealing to him to open this up, because he's like, when we dive into this, it separates us completely. And I was immediately thinking, I've got to get him in touch with Dr. Prado, Dr. Ertley in
Yes.
Invita, because like, hey, if you're going to go this way, these guys have already set the model, and he's thinking of it
Yeah.
more from an orthopedic and arthritis and dealing with joints and that kind of stuff, which it 100% helps, right? Because I imagine once you change your diet, you stopped having all those other kind of little pains.
Oh, well,
not just
I had Guillain-Barré syndrome when I
Yeah.
was 21 years of age. So I had suffered numbness and tingliness and all of this stuff, not knowing that my why I got Guillain-Barré syndrome at age 21 is I was injured by a vaccine. I was
Oh, yeah.
vaccine injured at a very young age. It doesn't show up until something traumatic happens, which spawn off into many different infections or co-infections of Lyme disease. So my Lyme disease from a vaccine injury
Yeah.
combined with, and now I've got cancer at age 39. So you understand, like
Mhm.
people ask, are you a doctor? I said, no, I'm a professional patient. I've been one almost my entire adult life.
Yeah.
And it really is, when I met Dr. Pratt, it was like, you know, you get 2-3 knocks on your head. And I was treated with my cancer at Invita. And then they brought in a Lyme specialist doctor in 2005, about 4 years later, and he kept looking at my case and he kept saying, Sandy, I'm just telling you, everything from Guillain-Barré syndrome to all this stuff that you had. I had something that was going on with my brain, and I would have these crazy seizure-like episodes.
Mhm.
That was all from Lyme disease.
Yeah.
And then I get aggressive cancer. And so he says, I'm just telling you. So it took 3 times. Now the testing is way better now, you know, 20 years later. But
Yeah.
but I would test negative for the Western blot or CDC 57 for Lyme. And then by the 3rd time, off the charts. So it was a perfect storm
Yeah.
that led up to my cancer. It was a combination of everything. And most people have Lyme infections and don't realize it.
Yeah.
And I would say over 70% of the people, because they started testing then all of the cancer patients at Invita for Lyme disease, and over 70% of the patients had a co-infection.
Yeah.
So that you can see the breakdown, why that immune system was being torn down, so that the cancer cells can just, you know, start to grow and multiply.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what age.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and that's such a common, like, and when you think about like when COVID hit, right? And like who was really susceptible to it? Like we didn't all have to have the vaccine. We didn't all have to, like, if you were healthy, and I almost say in quotes, because so many of us did not know that we had an underlying thing going on, whether it was Lyme disease or some other
I
thing.
knew.
And it was like, right. But it's like
Anything with vaccines, I knew. Yeah.
so many people didn't know that. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, why am I, and then when you start really researching it and getting into the holistic side of healing and the alternative, unfortunately, alternative side of things, you start going and saying like, oh my gosh, well, no wonder this person that looked fit and looked healthy all of a sudden got this
Dropped.
disease, died within 3 months, 6 months, like, and the doctors just couldn't figure out what's going on, but they looked healthy.
But the turbo cancers, the myocarditis, the pericarditis, I mean, you know, there's a whole backstory to, you know, I got on the bandwagon with educating parents. I had Educate and Motivate seminars through the foundation, Fullness of Life Foundation, that I would get up to 100 to 200 parents at each one. And I would have 3 different doctors discussing the risks of vaccines for parents, because SIDS was on the rise in the 80s and 90s, never heard of it before. Now, all of a sudden, the HPV vaccine is introduced. Now you're having uterine cancers, ovarian cancers, and all these cancers rising up. And you know, thank God I was surrounded by these doctors that were saying, you know, this is terrible, because they don't understand what these vaccines are going to bring 10 years from now and 15 years. And now, and that's the same thing with the COVID. When they say they're safe and effective, unfortunately, not one vaccine has ever been safety tested.
Right.
Regardless of what anyone says. Show the study. Show the study and show me one that's safe. There isn't any. I've researched it.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a long, long time because, you know, none of my kids are vaccinated because of my injury. Yeah. And, you know, that was my wake-up call, but I'm one of the ones that survived even that, Guillain-Barré.
Right.
You know, now Guillain-Barré is one of the #1 side effects of the COVID vaccine. Isn't that something? Right. Nobody had ever heard of that before.
Yeah.
And no neurologist could tell me. I had 3 neurologists when I was 21. And then all of a sudden I'm walking again and talking again, and I'm they're like, how did that happen? Well, this is all God.
Yeah.
So I have a story to tell to warn as many as possible.
Mhm. Well, and like you said, there's so many different side effects to so many different things, and it's nearly impossible to sit down and test everything out and go
Yeah.
and try and, I mean, it's yes, can you do that? But it's to do that, that's your whole entire life.
Yes.
And I would imagine like there's going to be a ton of money and a ton of pushback. And because one of the things I've mentioned this on multiple times with different doctors is that, my wife, she was struggling with something. We couldn't get her health figured out. And I was like, go to your primary, have your blood work done. Let's see what, and then blood work comes back and primary's like, that's perfect. Looks great. So everything's within normal bounds. And I'm like,
But
no,
what
no, no.
people don't understand is they changed the parameters. So
Right. The parameters change based on who is
yes,
taking the test.
same with
Right.
cholesterol.
And so
So they can hand out more statins.
is overall our health gets worse. Well, normal gets worse. Right.
Yes.
But then I said, okay, go get this. I want this test done, this oat test. And the doctor was like, I don't know what this, why would you want this? And insurance isn't going to cover it. So why would you want this? And I'm like, pay the $400. I want the test. Right. And we got the test done and it was like immediate. I was able to see like, oh, well, this is off and this is off. We got to fix this. Let's change these things in our diet to get things going in the right direction. And lo and behold, like she feels better. Like, right. And to your point, like one of the reasons I have the podcast is because I believe if we feed ourselves right, we operate correctly, and not just food, but what we consume energy wise, what we consume news wise, what we, social media wise, all of these things. If we give our body the correct things, it will heal itself because God designed it to do that.
Yes. And
right?
that is exactly what Dr. Prado had told me. He says, God gave you everything you need to fight this. He goes, we're just going to increase your ability till your body can catch up, that it can now heal itself. And so I was on high dose. I did ozone sauna before every treatment because I had a PICC line. So all my treatments had to be done through an IV in my hand for seven. That's why it took so long, 5 to 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
To drip, because I was up to within weeks, just I think 2 or 3 weeks, I was up to 130,000 milligrams of pure liquid vitamin C in one IV.
Oh, wow.
Plus my yeah, like when I say Dr. Prado was outside the box, the average that you can do, if you say that to a doctor in a hospital, they think I can't give you that much, that'll kill you. Well, that actually saved my life. Right. And because we had no time. We had to get my body to adjust to it. Thank God it did slowly over time. But I did the ozone sauna, then the ozone therapy where they oxygenate your blood. So they run it through an ultraviolet light, kill all the toxins, oxygenate the blood, and then the high dose vitamin C nutrient IVs. And I did that every single day, plus eliminated all the whites out of the diet and just organic. And it took me 5 years to retrain my bowels. Right. So in that time, it was not easy. Boy, when they say, well, we're just going to try this. No one prepares you for life after cancer. Yeah. Nobody prepares you for when you're diagnosed and where to go and who to listen to and who's right and who's not and who's just wants to, you walk into any cancer institution right now off the street. You got diagnosed with cancer. Doesn't matter what cancer you have. You are a minimum 1.1 to 1.5 million that's going to come in because of your insurance going into that facility. 23 years ago, it was 600,000 for me walking into the Mayo. So here's how health insurance works. So my 80-20, this is coming from a nurse that worked at the Mayo. Mm-hmm. And she said, Sandy, that when you come, just by you being here, that hospital's, that's 600,000, that's check you. So when I stopped after only 4 months, my chemo and radiation at the Mayo, and said, I'm just going to go with Invita. You would have thought I just had robbed a bank. They treat you totally differently because you're going up against the system. Right. Insurance is saying, wait, you didn't finish your protocol. The hospital's going, you didn't finish. Oh, by the way, Sandy, your 4 months, you're 20%, you owe 120,000 to the Mayo yesterday. Yeah. So I look at that, and then my treatments at Invita, so you tell me who's making the money. My treatments for a year, my first year at Invita Medical Center was 48,000.
Wow.
And they made 600. And they say the naturopaths, because it's a cash pay, it's only a cash pay, because they don't put the CTP, they will not bill it and include naturopath or any integrative or alternative approach in their system until now that we designed the new Invita healthcare plan. I hope Dr. Utley covered that.
Yes,
that's a game that has been my dream, and Dr. Prados, because I said, isn't it sad that 65% of all bankruptcies right now that were done in just last year in the country were all due to medical bankruptcy? 65%. That is a crime. People can't afford to get sick, and then the only choice is whatever their insurance is going to cover. So I've been an advocate for 23 years for Invita to say, no. That you go what you got can do over there, but then you've got to do this at the same time. And this first time ever this year that now we have the first ever integrative healthcare plan. So people have access to this healthcare now, and you're getting the best of both worlds. Isn't that the way it should be?
Yeah, it should be, you know, and it should be like whatever is and I can relate to this just from my Achilles injury is like the platelet replacement plasma therapy injection that I had, right? I go in and the doctor's like, okay, well, here's, okay, your copay for the visit to set everything up is this. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, but this is how much it's going to cost. And I was like, oh, and they're like, insurance won't pay for it.
And
I'm like,
nope.
Oh, okay. Like, you're like, okay.
The stuff that works.
Yeah, the stuff that works. And I went in today for the follow-up and he's like, how's it feel? I was like, well, it feels great. I feel like I could go run today. He goes, okay, but you can't. You've got the 6 weeks. Like that's the research says. Wait the 6 weeks before you go. And he's like, okay, well, has your PT done another ultrasound to see what? Oh yeah, and it's like 10% of what it was when we did the ultrasound 4 weeks ago. He's like, oh, well, then when we finish the 6 weeks, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be able.
You'll be fine.
Here we go for it.
Do you know that there's a protocol out there that using frequency with the Acuscope was originally designed? So I know Cam and Cody Lowe, the brothers that started out here in Arizona, and I had a frozen shoulder for a year and a half, could not lift my arm past my hip. I mean, it was painful. And finally, I bumped into a gentleman that they were opening up, and he says, why are you rubbing your shoulder like that? I mean, I was in I didn't have any use of my left arm. And they said, you need to come meet this Cameron Lowe. So I go meet Cameron, and he's a Major League Baseball pitcher for Texas Rangers and Atlanta Braves. And he had 3 bulging discs, and he wasn't pitching. He was only pitching at 91, 92 miles an hour, and he needed to get back up to 95, 96. And he used this machine. His trainer said that we can't inject you with any more steroids, cortisone. We can't inject you with any more. Like, Cam, you're on your own, except you might want to try this. One guy actually worked at the Pentagon that had access to this equipment and said, you need to treat. It's all frequency and energy. It healed my shoulder within months. I've had full use, weights, doing everything that I used to do, except I don't do Taekwondo anymore. But there are so many modalities, so many, especially with the regenerative, using the exosomes or the stem cells or the PRPs, and yet insurance won't cover it until now. Except for the Invita healthcare plan.
And it's like, but it's because, as we talked about off camera, it's because the system wants. I mean, you're a customer.
Yes.
Right. Like
exactly. Your number.
And when it comes to insurance, like. And I know that like Medicare is starting to come around, like and go like, whoa, this is getting way out of hand, from just the standpoint of like, oh, I got sick, go in and get something to get fixed, and somebody else is going to pay for it, because I know that it's coming and it's starting to roll out. In it, like, okay, you want us to cover your Medicare, you want us to cover your bypass surgery, you have to prove that you're going to do the things that require afterwards for you to live, right? Otherwise, we're not going to cover it, or we may not cover all of it like we used to, like, because we're not just going to let you go and get a temporary fix so you can just go continue and trash your life.
And that's the thing is, and most people, 70% right now of Gen Zs, the millennials, are all wanting the integrative approach.
Right.
It is amazing now. 70%. So they're willing to forego getting health insurance through their employers because they'd rather go pay out of pocket because they don't want to be, they've seen what happened to their parents and their grandparents. If you're just, prescribing pills or being prescription pills. I mean, whenever I go to a regular doctor, which I haven't in years, it's like they go, any medications? Nope. Supplements. Can you list all your vitamins? I said, well, you got a day?
Yeah, right.
And it's like, oh, do I have to? I could just go a lot.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's what, the doctor I used to go to for years, which again was just for annuals or acute things, right? Like I've had the crazy, one in, I can't remember, it's like 0.0001% of males between the ages of 20 and 40 have this happen. But I've had two spontaneous pneumothoraxes where I woke up and the lungs just completely collapsed.
Serious?
Yeah, just crazy. Just like in the first time it happened, and when I went into my doctor and I had no idea, of course, and it was after hours. So for treatment, he had to send me to the ER. And thankfully, my best friend was at the time a surgeon. Now he's an actual ER doctor, but he actually put the chest tube in that reinflated it. But I'm sitting there and this, what really threw them off is because I was in such good shape. My oxygen was at 98%. So they were like, how are you at 98% oxygen, but
your lungs aren't inflated?
One lung working, but for the first 20 minutes or so that I'm sitting in the ER waiting for him to put the chest tube in, they brought every intern, every medical student, all the nurses came in to listen because they were like, you'll never see this again.
Wow.
You'll never see this again. And I'm like, how strange is this? And then when it happened the second time, it was even
holy
crazier.
cow, you're lucky.
But
you're blessed. That's the best word.
But I had to switch off of that doctor because of insurance stuff, and was just able to recently go back to him this year because my wife changed jobs and we were able to switch insurance and get back to him, because the doctor that I saw in the meantime, the one that had the nurse that told me I was definitely going to be on cholesterol medicine because it was a family thing. That doctor was like, yeah, I mean, I see your point with nutrition, but nobody's going to listen. Whereas my current doctor, he's like, no, I've had him on as a guest because he's like, no, I fully believe you're vegan. That's the best thing to do. All the research shows it. You need to eat, non-dairy, I mean, you can go off of it a little bit. You can have fish if it's wild caught. You can have, but some of that stuff is so hard to get for some people. It's you're better off just avoiding the risk of increasing your mercury level or increasing the other things that come with farm raised fish. And so it's sometimes it's better to just be okay, I don't want to take a chance, and I'd rather have a doctor who's thinking that, even though he's in the system, he's trying to teach his people.
If they're open, I believe that. I believe doctors go into that field because of they have a heart for that. They're being drawn to that. It's unfortunate that they're not taught the whole internal part of the body, the internal medicine, and not just that, the whole body, mind and soul, because that really is your ticket to ultimate freedom. I knew that the odds were against me. And so my thinking and my school of thought when I met Dr. Prado, well, if I start to stack the odds in my favor, that's the shot he's talking about. I was still okay if I didn't make it, and Dr. Prado was my doctor. At least they went out fighting, which is what at least they went out trying. I saw how, you have to understand, my aunt died at age 53 of colorectal cancer. My grandmother had just passed away. This is all in the last decade, 10 years before me. Now I'm diagnosed at even younger age. So my kids had to be screened at age 21, just because they say, well, that's kind of no, I still think that not so much hereditary, that was lifestyle. That was definitely a lot of it. And but if doctors understand when they're diagnosed immediately, no matter what kind of cancer it is, you've got to stop the fuel. You got to turn the gas line off of what's fueling that growth, especially with an aggressive, they told my husband after my surgery, you just need to get your affairs in order. I have an 8-year-old daughter and we had a 13-year-old son.
Yeah.
So we have two young kids, very impressionable ages to like go all of a sudden doing that kind of talk.
Right.
Whereas my husband said, no, we're not giving them that talk. We're going to give them the life talk.
Yeah.
This is just a part of life. We're going to get through it as a family, but but you know what? I had no idea the backlash that we were going to take as a family from our friends and family, because we were going with an unknown naturopathic doctor who didn't even have a track record. And I was his first patient the first day he opened his doors.
Right.
And still the longest survivor.
Yeah.
I mean, and to see how Envita has grown over the years, and now, I mean, it's mind-boggling, but that is all God. I mean, somebody has to go through and start that, and I'm okay if it was me, but to give other people hope that you have to do, you have to erase the tape that the doctors give you when you're given your sentence,
right?
Whatever it is, your purgatory. Because of my cancer was so aggressive that I got out after 5 years, no insurance company, even though I have 5 years cured.
Right.
As they say in remission, I was cured because they went in to do the scope within 4 months later. In my scope, they couldn't even tell. My colon was that of a brand new newborn that my husband had the pictures before and after. You could not tell where the resection was. It was like nothing had happened. Yeah. My scar I had a huge scar about 1.5 feet down my stomach, was flesh colored because I was using castor oil with a heating pad 2 times a day.
Yep.
To heal the topical to go inside. And everybody, I knew this was working. But people are given this sentence, and then they're every 6 months or 4 months in my case, I was reminded of my sentence. Yeah. Because you have to go get all your tests again. You have to get your PET scans and so you live in a 3 or 4 month increment, hanging on a hope and a prayer. Yeah. And so 5 years out, they now say, well, you can't even up your life insurance. You're not insurable. And we can't do your health insurance. Oh, if you do want health insurance, it's going to be for you, Sandy, $2,300 a month. Now that was 23 years ago. I can't imagine what it will be now. Oh, yeah. Because I wasn't supposed to make it. So if you look at that, and then, do you know what? Nobody would insure me till I was 10 years cancer free. Yeah. So people don't understand how corrupt and how cruel this is. Yeah. Because I was fortunate to be financially in a position, not to just throw money at the system, but to save my life. Yeah. And how many people are dealt that blow that they know there's life-saving treatments, but their insurance company won't cover it. So you base it, and you have what's called survivor's guilt. Mm-hmm. Survivor's guilt is when you use all means necessary to try to beat your cancer, cure your cancer, but it's going to cost you out of pocket with no guarantee that this is going to work. Yeah. And I knew it cost our family, a couple of $100,000. And it's like, we were in our prime. We didn't have money saved like that to just go throw it and go, does this work? Does it? You have this survivor's guilt. So I felt like I was a burden. I'm like, okay, Lord, I don't want to be a burden and cost my family any more time and any more money. It's grueling. My husband is doing most of the work because I'm not able to work now. We were a partnership in our business. And he's carrying the load of that. And I'm like, it destroys families. Yeah. Emotionally, physically, and financially. Yeah. Destroys them. Yeah. And so that's why I wanted to be able to just go, you know what? There is life after cancer. And we all got to band together and do whatever we've got to do to change the system, because I believe the future is medical freedom. And that's why we designed the Envita Medical Healthcare Plan, was that now it eliminates all the excuses. Every single doctor is included in this network, all 1.2 million doctors across the United States. We're even setting up a part of it to include the Canadians or other foreigners, because there's people that fly in from all over the world to get treated at Envita. Right. So we are going to be controversial for the right to have the true medical plans in place that we all want.
Yeah.
Nobody has to be a victim of the system anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. It's very much a victim, because if you look at if you just look at the healthcare system and the results, right? The outcome.
Yep. The outcomes.
In what the US is like 35th or 40th or something in the world as far as outcomes, but we're
Yes.
always 1, 2, or 3 when it comes to technology and advancements in being able to break the mold as to, oh, here's all the new stuff, but
insurance won't cover it.
it's going to cost you so much you can't use it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh my gosh, like it's nuts, really, when you think about it, as to how. And so it doesn't surprise me when I hear people like, I've got a family member who has dealt with breast cancer, who needs something done with their knee, because it just life has taken over, right? And they're elder.
Yep.
and so it's like, and they talk to me about like, okay, well, what do you think I should. I'm like, well, I mean, I know it costs a little bit of money, but yeah, your best option is to go to Costa Rica or Jamaica or wherever this, like, there's a couple of doctors that can go and they can take care of your knee.
Yep.
And you will within 3 months be fine. But that's not allowed in the US, because you know what it does? It cures your problem.
Yes.
In
And
the
then
US, they want you to
you
get a
don't
knee
need them
replacement,
anymore.
because if you get a knee replacement, you're always going to be on this medicine. You're always going to be on that medicine. And they know it's going to break down. And so if you live another 10 years, you're going to need another one.
Yep.
And so
Exactly.
it's like you could go spend, I mean, a small fraction of the overall cost of what it would cost you to be in the system. And that's your cost after insurance
Yes.
pays,
Yes.
So of course and the people that are in the system, and I'm not saying it from a standpoint of like saying that doctors are corrupt or that they're working in the system.
In the system, and they are pawns in that system, and they're limited to what they can do based on what they are called to do, whatever their specialty is. They're experts in that, but they're not experts in the whole body or what to do to prevent it from ever coming back. You'll never hear any medical institution talking about preventative.
Right. And when you get somebody like Dr. Prado, who's, when he started, I guarantee if you looked back, if he was open enough to share with it, and you looked back at his financials for the first couple of years, it's probably pennies.
Why I started the foundation was because Dr. Prado was treating every single child that came in out of pocket. And I said, I'm in business. And I said, we set up businesses. We're in finance. I said, you are going to go broke if you continue this. And that's why we started the Fullness of Life Foundation and started raising awareness and money that there was an alternative way to fight the cancer.
Yeah. And so it's the doctors that want to go out on their own and want to do that. Like, they're not supported by insurance. They're only supported by who can afford to pay it. And then it becomes, like you said, and then it becomes a discussion in your own mind, right? As a patient, right? That tell me that this is correct. Like you have the discussion of like, okay, insurance is going to cover this much and I could do that. And financially, it's not going to disrupt too much of the family, or I could feel better. It's going to cost a ton of money because I'm going to have to pay this just completely out of pocket. And neither necessarily gives you 100% guarantee.
That's the key.
Right.
There's
and
no
so
guarantee.
It's like, it's the prayer and it's the faith and it's understanding like, okay, God has to tell me which way I'm going to go.
Yes.
But in the long run, we've been doing this now long enough with most diseases and most issues that in the long run, it's always to either go the alternative integrative route or to at least have them as a part of the team. You're always going to have a better outcome.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, what makes Envita unique is it does combine the best of both worlds. They realize that they need both. And so they have oncologists, radiologists, DOs, naturopaths, MDs on staff. And so you're getting, your team is a combination of 4 of those different expertises or 5, depending on your case or how severe it is. And you're getting the best of all those minds working for precision care based on your genetics. They didn't have this when I came in 23 years ago. This is how it's evolved, is to become the best in personalized precision medicine. And now with this healthcare plan, I mean, it's a no-brainer because we all want to have this, and yet their outcomes. But look at this. They just had the study. I don't know if Dr. Early covered this, but the study that just happened was published just a month and a half ago, that there are now 35 times greater outcomes with stage 4 cancer patients.
Yeah.
I just sit there and go, oh, now here's something that's even crazier. Do you know, I'm from Canada. Both my husband and I are Canadian. We've had 5 of our close immediate family members, sisters, fathers, sister-in-laws, come down to Invita, all cured.
Wow.
At Invita.
Wow.
So, and they all had to pay cash pay. There's no discount.
Of course. Yep.
For family and friends.
Right.
It's cash pay. But if you, and we're talking cancers, my dad is just turned 90. He was diagnosed at age 76 with stage 3 prostate cancer.
Oh, wow.
You know that when my dad was diagnosed, from the time he was diagnosed in November, his first oncology appointment was when he was going to meet with the specialist to tell him what his protocol was going to be. Wasn't until July of the next year.
Oh my God.
8 months later.
Wow.
I said, you know what, Dad? I love you, but that sucks.
Yeah.
You're just going to fall through the cracks because of your age. You have aged out of the system. You're not a productive member of society. We're bringing you down to Invita. He went through 6 weeks of treatments at Invita. He's been in remission.
Wow.
What does that tell you? So I feel for that socialized medicine. Just because it's free does not mean it's the best. They're overwhelmed, especially with after COVID, with all of the vaccine injuries. Just in our own business, we have 7 of our own brokers that are vaccine injured right now. It's horrible that what they made people do against their will that they would have normally never have done, or they would have been ostracized from society or their community. And so we've been hit all around with this. So the socialized medicine, and in a way, the US is very similar because in the network, in your insurance company, it's socialized medicine. There's no medical freedom in it. You get through whoever your specialist, if they're in the network, that is who they're gonna refer you to. We had a doctor come in whose wife out of Texas, and his wife actually has a big radio show, big following. He was one of the voices speaking out against COVID during COVID, and the mandates and the lockdowns, and this is not how medicine works. Well, he'd been referring for 20 years to the MD Anderson, and his wife now has breast cancer, and he'd already knew about Invita Medical Center. He was on his radar, so he called Dr. Prado, and Dr. Prado says, well, we do personalized medicine. We're going to run these tests, these tests, these tests. So he sent his wife to MD Anderson, the number 1, in Texas. And he says, can you please do this, run these lab work, these blood tests that they do in Invita? No, we can't do that. He says, well, it's just a blood test. Well, doctor, we could do it, but then we don't know what to do with them after we get the results back. He felt so bad. He brought his wife out. She went through her treatments. She's completely doing great. And, this is just since January, February. And you just go, if this is a doctor that's in that, so he goes, I just feel bad. I've been referring people for 20 years we don't know what the outcome's going to be, because statistically, it's not good, because usually the cancers or the chemos that is given, 90% are the wrong kind. When she came to Invita, it was precision. Do you know that this is how crazy God is? When I came into Invita Medical Center, they did not test me for the genetic targeting until I was a guinea pig for that test, to realize that the 5FU chemo that I was given in 2001 was the exact chemo that I should have taken for my colon cancer because of my blood type.
Oh, wow.
This is all God.
Because
I shouldn't be here otherwise. It just so happened you're doing the testing. And he goes, Dr. Prado calls me. He's like, Sandy, do you realize how God works, and how amazing this is, that the only chemo they gave you is the only one that you could have taken?
Wow.
Because I saw other colon patients on the 5FU didn't make it. So I'm like, holy Lord, thank you. Whatever you want me to do, Lord, I'm yours. I will teach. I will preach. Whatever you need.
And that's a big piece of, the doctor situation there is a big, eye opener for everybody. It should be, as far as like the advocacy that you need to take
Yes.
on yourself.
Yes.
And
You have to take your health care into your own hands. Had I pressured more when I was first had the symptoms in May of 2000. So we're talking 5-6 months later. What is it? June, July, August, September. August is when I was doubling over in pain. I was literally down to juicing.
yeah,
So that's only 4 months later. So in that 4 months, my cancer was just anything I was doing was just fueling the cancer.
right.
My body was slowly shutting down. And we were at a function at a anniversary, a 50th anniversary for my husband's parents. And I normally am the energizing bunny, and I was done by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had to go I've never had to have a nap in my life.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted. And Mark goes, "That's not like you." And it was only 2 weeks later, he took me to emergency. A week and a half later, he took me to emergency. So, when you have the symptoms and your doctor isn't being proactive to get you the testing, I wanted something. I just didn't know I didn't know that I was not a candidate for colonoscopy because I was only 39. Well, now you have so much more. You've got Cologuard, you've got blood tests that you can do, right, for screening. There's so many things in preventative, but I really believe you have to have a proactive doctor. I think a natural medical doctor knows the internal body of the best. And find a good one. Find one that's going to find the root cause. That's the key. But you have to be your own advocate, and you've got to push for it. I mean, I was asking questions. Why are you giving me this ozone? What is this? So finally, Dr. Prado got so tired of me asking questions, he just started printing out all the studies. So when I get there in the morning, everything he'd had from the night before, he handed me a file. You're going to read about ozone. You're going to read about how important vitamin IV therapy is. You're going to see how this has been going on since the 1930s. And I'm like, so he was arming me with knowledge. And the more information you know, the more power you have in taking care of your health. So most people go to their doctor and they say, "What do I do?" You should say, "Okay, so what are we doing?" Not what are you telling me to do? What is your plan here for me?
Right.
What is the outcome to get the best outcome? And that's what people spend too much time trusting their doctors instead of hearing what they're saying and going, "Okay, so what's another approach? What's another approach?" Thank God we went to 3 different opinions, and we stuck with Dr. Prado, and we used the best of both worlds. Plus I was in charge, which is discipline with what I put in my body, how I exercise. I mean, even just going for walks was enough for me, even though I'm an all out, taekwondo, boxing, all that kind of stuff. I had to pull it back and go, basically, this is a football, like Vince Lombardi. You're going to start from square one. You're going to learn to breathe. You're going to learn to eat healthy, and you don't want that. You're going to do this because this is a fuel your body needs.
Right. Well,
So
and to do that, you really do have to have that long-term approach,
discipline.
Right? And I would imagine it helps coming from the financial world. It's like you look at it, you talk to people all the time, like you got to have the long-term approach. Like you
saving money,
you
every
can't just
month.
spend money if you don't have it. Like you've got to have that long-term approach. And that's the discipline that because people ask me like, "Oh, how do you have the discipline to do, all that you do, like the running that you do to get ready for?" My wife has asked me so many times when I go out for a long run, because most of my races are between a mile and a 5K, like a mile to 3 miles. And I'll go out and she's like, "Well, how far are you going today?" I'm like, "I got 13 miles. She's like, "Why are you running 13 miles to get ready to run a 1 mile race?" And I'm like, "Because it's part of the plan. It's how it works." And she's like, and then she'll go, "But you created your plan." Because I'm a coach. I coach myself. And I'm like, "Yeah, but I've researched all these other people that are doing all the different things, who's having the most success with what, and this is how the plan works. And so you have to work the plan."
Yes.
And when you do that, it doesn't mean I work the plan, except for this 10% of stuff that I do over
When it's
here.
convenient. Yeah.
Right. Because like and somebody has gone through colon stuff. I know that you know that, like, if you go off plan, you feel it immediately.
You feel it, you know it. Yep.
And your body is saying, "Don't ever do that again."
No.
right? And so
And
why would
what's
you do
funny?
that?
When you say that with the discipline, one of the things, one of my first lessons in patience and discipline is Dr. Prado, like me being an A-type personality, and he had me sussed up in his first appointment, who he was dealing with, who was in front of him, like, oh Lord, I got to pray for this one, because she's like, she's like all out there. But he sent me home with 2 prayers that
Yeah.
he had given me with scripture, and he said, here's your first lesson in discipline. And I'm like, okay, what I got to do? I'm 100% coachable because I love coaches. Okay. And I am a coach.
Yeah.
So I respect that when you have somebody who listens to the coach and they follow through with the plan. And he says, you're going to read these prayers every night before your head hits the pillow and before your feet hit the floor every single morning.
Right.
So, and he goes, you're going to say them out loud that you're talking to God so God can hear you. So this is not in your head. This is not a whisper. This is your meaning, this prayer. So God hears you. So for 3 days, I did what he told me to do. So I get all proud of myself because I being coachable and I appreciate that. And I go running into his office. I'm ready for my IVs. And he go, all right, doc, I did what you told me to do. I've done your prayers for 3 days in a row. Now what? And he goes, okay, Sandy, here's how this is going to go. You are going to do these prayers for however long it takes. And that was my first lesson in, this is not about once in a while. This isn't about just a little assignment. This is a lifestyle.
Right.
And I did faithfully those prayers, like he said, until for however long it took. And I think they, like I said, they wouldn't mark me cancer free until I was 5 years later. But he told me, he said after 4 months, he says, you're already cancer free. I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just had to look at my blood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the technology piece that's there that that so many doctors are not, and it's again part of the system they're in, part of the busyness, part of insurance says you have to see this many patients, and you only have this much time with them.
Yep.
And so they're overwhelmed, and unless they want to put in 180 hours a week, like they're not good. It's just it's impossible to keep up with.
You can't, especially now after COVID, and you see all the issues. Every doctor, every hospital system is overwhelmed right now because everything's on the rise. So I think, but in saying that, it's almost like society, we needed a wake up call, and we got it.
Yeah.
And we got a big one because right now nobody trusts their doctor. Nobody trusts what they hear on TV. Who the experts are, or trust the science. As we've heard, you just have to listen to Fauci's testimony and you just go, whoa, okay. I mean, it's funny. This is just off the record, but we had to watch those conferences live because Dr. Prado was on the medical freedom team at that time with President Trump. And so there was about 22 doctors that were on that board or that team, all built of naturopaths, DOs, MDs, assembled and preparing for, I guess, COVID. That just so happened to be. And 10 of the 22 board members ended up being on the disinformation dozen.
Yeah.
I mean, you just go, you can't make this stuff up. But I don't know what I was saying about that.
Well, but it's just they're overwhelmed. They're not, and it's not their fault. It is the system that they chose to work in. And it's just like any other executive that is being driven too hard with their work and what's going on. And there's a point where you just, you can't keep up with the new technologies going on. And so you just say, I'm going to do things the way that I've always done them.
Yes.
Right? And then somebody comes along like Dr. Prado and cracks the box wide open. Yeah. Right. And it's like, whoa, we don't have to be over here. We can go way over here, start curing things. And it rattles the system, but that's what we need.
That's what we need. We need someone to be disruptive in the system right now. So they don't have the clout that they have. But if you look at, any news show we watch, any sports thing is all you see is pharmaceutical, meds being propagated. And
Yep.
so, you think that because we've been so indoctrinated or programmed to think that trust your doctor, trust this is what works. This pill's going to make a difference. But what they don't understand is every time you take a medication, you're creating another, imbalance somewhere else
Right.
in the chemistry of the body.
Yep.
So yeah, it might mask the symptoms here, but it's going to create a whole nother challenge over here.
Right.
Might not show up today, but I bet you
Yeah.
by the time you're on that drug for a year or 2 years, things are going to start to break out. And then what do? They give you another pill because you're having symptoms of this right now.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like you said, with the cholesterol, with drugs, with Lipitor, with all of that, it's all about the money unfortunately in the healthcare system. And I think everyone has woken up to that now. Before, when I was educating on the risks of vaccines, 20 years ago, I realized I was 20 years before my time. One of the doctors that was a vaccine expert on the risks of vaccine had death threats. Who knew? Like, you're trying to protect these parents from their child having autism, your child having, all these issues. And then the doctor, because he's the messenger, he's going against what the establishment says. They're safe. Well, I know they're not safe. I got Guillain-Barré syndrome. I'm lucky I lived, and I'm lucky I don't have any of those side effects still.
Right.
For many years, I had it.
Yeah.
And nobody could tell me why. And now it makes sense, especially after COVID. Like I said, one of the number one side effects is Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yep.
Cancer.
Well, and it's the indoctrination of the system. And I've got one person who found me through the podcast and is a listener, and she messages me occasionally, and so we'll have an interaction. And she messaged me last night and was like, okay, wait a minute, I got another question. Like, is a fruit only diet bad? And like, can I do that? And I was like, yeah, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be an adjustment.
Yeah.
Right. As you get to it. But if you do it correctly, you shouldn't have a problem. You may or may not be able to live that way for the rest of your life. But for a short term, absolutely, you can do that if you do it right. I mean, you don't want to just stick to, mangoes. You got to vary it out and do it the right way. And so she was like, okay. And so this morning I wake up and she messaged back and she was like, so I'm supposed to eat 2,000 calories of fruit? And I was like, why does 2,000 calories mean anything to you? Right?
It's not about the calories.
It's not about this arbitrary number that's been created. It's about,
it's like the food pyramid is completely upside down.
Yeah.
It's like, I learned that 23 years. I learned so much. You just go, whoa, what is going on here? Why is this not being taught in schools if our kids learn to eat healthy?
Yep.
My gosh.
But we get stuck on these things, right? We get stuck on these things that the government or the FDA recommends. And then it's like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, go back to like, your body. Yeah. If it doesn't feel right and it doesn't make you feel better, then it's
one of the
not
keys
for you.
and one of the keys that helped me was actually I have it right here. That really helped. Dr. Prado, he actually made a cookbook. It was called Eat Right, The Stupid Diet.
Yeah.
And so it's so simple, it's stupid. But this was a huge helper, was Eat Right for Your Blood Type, because I'm an A. So that was the vegetarian with the wild caught fish only, and just stuck on that. I'm back on it again because I was venturing out and eating organic chicken, but it doesn't do the not against anybody who eats it, just not, my body just doesn't do well with that. And so I'm sticking to, the blood type, the foods that work for my blood type. And it's amazing. Yeah. Amazing the difference in how you feel. Had I known this my entire life, probably could have avoided all the cancer drama and all that stuff, right? Right.
But it goes back to one of the things I was going to say, and we just kept talking, but you mentioned it's not always your genetics, right? That's actually a small percentage.
Small percentage, very small, like 1 or 2%.
It's what you learn in the kitchen. Right? Yep. It's what you learn in the kitchen that makes a difference in how your life plays out, really, from a health standpoint.
Yep. Big
outside of a couple of minor like like I say minor, they could be major in your world, but a couple of cute things that could happen, or a couple of, strange anomalies that could happen. But other than that, most of what your health outcomes come from is what happens in your kitchen or
Yeah.
doesn't happen in your kitchen.
Or doesn't have, yeah, exactly. Dr. Prado told me years ago, he says, when you go into a grocery store, he goes, you have to understand, you only shop on the outside aisles. And I went, well, that's interesting. He goes, because everything else is dead.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, that's it. So every time I walk in, that visual is just like, ooh, that's dead aisle, because that does zero quality for food value, for your nutrients, for your, sorry, I had a road runner just is looking at me through the window.
Nice.
It's like coming right up to the window. I'm like, that's
Nice.
weird.
But
He's
no,
right
that's
there.
it. Like I do all the shopping for our family just because my schedule is more flexible. And I went this morning at like 6:30 and went to the grocery store, and like it's empty.
Yeah.
It's easy to get in and out. But I remember this was probably a month ago that my wife was like, hey, our daughter wanted to make something. She had friends coming over, and she's like, she wants to make this. I know it's not normally something we eat, but we're having people who don't eat like we do come over. She wants to be. I was like, okay, I'm okay with that. And she's like, so she needs these ingredients, and I was like, I don't know where this is.
Yeah.
Like
Because
I
you're
go
not used
I go
to
the
it.
same places. Boom, 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 boom. This is where the food
Yep.
is that we eat.
It's
I was
very
like,
simple, and it
I
costs
don't know where
less
this
when you
is.
eat healthy.
Yeah.
That's
And so
funny.
it's like I go down an aisle and I'm like, okay, I didn't know they sold this here. Like, and so it's just funny how, but that again goes back to that discipline piece. If you're okay with being disciplined, it makes it very easy to do some of these
Easy.
things, because you've got blinders on to where boom,
Yep.
boom, boom. That's all I need. That's all I do.
And it wasn't easy because having two young kids, my husband, and they weren't on my diet.
Right.
And so, everything was organic, but I would cook two meals
Yeah.
each time. I'd cook
Yeah.
their steak and chicken, and I'd have my fish. So we always you're just putting an extra protein or an extra dish that's going to, so I just learned to cook like that for years, still do
Yeah.
it to this day.
Yeah.
Still do it to this day.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's a lifestyle change, but when you're putting the right things in your body, it is amazing. Like I just turned 62, but I feel like
wow.
I'm in better shape at 62 than I was at 38.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
And it's just the supplements, the nutrients, I still go.
Yeah.
People always say, well, why are you still going to Invita? I go once a month for my ozone therapy and my high dose vitamin C IV. Why? If it's working, why would I stop that discipline? So for 23 years, now I know that's probably a little over the top for some. For me, it's peace of mind.
Right.
I don't ever, the doctors told me at Sloan Kettering and Mayo, if it comes back, when it comes back, because it was a 99% chance it'd be back the first year, he goes, it's really bad. Like there's not much we could do for you because they'd already done the surgery.
Right.
I mean, they've already done the chemo and rate. There's not much we can do for you. So I've always had that in the background. I'm doing this because I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I think that there's one thing I want to say is, even when you get your green light, your go ahead with life light, I call it, you get the green light, the okay to move forward. Don't stop what you're doing. You keep going. You don't ever want to go back. Never go back into, and I've seen so many people, they get to their 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, and then they start and they're right back into the lifestyle, or immediately they go back after their treatments after 2 or 3 months at Invita, and they don't change anything, and they're not here a year from now.
Right.
Cancer came back with a vengeance because they think they should be cured.
Yeah.
They don't understand what that means to be cured, meaning you've got to create such a environment in your body that disease cannot exist.
Right.
And so you have to be on the preventative. You have to be, putting the right fuel in those bodies, because you're changing your cells over, every so many days, every so many hours, and they're either going to come back healthier or they're going to come back weaker. I want to make sure, even if I have an off day or 2 days, if I'm traveling, that I'm right back on my schedule, on my nutrition program, on my lifestyle, and making sure that I am going to be in the driver's seat of this. I'm not going to be, just winging it like I was before. I was winging it my first 39 years.
Yeah.
And this has all been planned. You know, I believe life is planned. Your succession at life after disease or after something traumatic is planned. And you are in 100% in the driver's seat of what those outcomes and the longevity of that. And when you get a little bit of help like you have with Invita Medical Center, whoever it is that's going to help rebuild your continue to build upon your immune system, you're doing the right thing. That is the best thing we can be doing. And I can't wait till this is common way of life.
Right. Well, and it is the immune system is everything. And there's so many things out there right now in our society, especially in America, that are promoted to you because it's a money driver for the company that's doing it, or the healthcare system, or whoever it is. It's like, oh, if I just advertise this, it's gonna get you in, it's gonna do it. And so, like I said, it's that part of that consumption piece. What am I consuming? What advertisements are I hearing? Like you said, because we stream, we don't do advertisements. But when something comes on, like a sporting event, and so we're like, well, we want to watch this because it's our favorite team or whatever.
And it's in our face.
In my daughter, well, she's 14, and she's just like, why would anybody ever want to take that medication?
See,
like
when you list all the side effects, yes.
Like, and we hear it so infrequently that she pays attention when she hears it. You know, it's not just this droning that goes on in our head, and all of a sudden we go, and then when we get sick and we go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, oh, I need you to take this pill, and you go, oh, I've heard about that on TV. Oh, it must be okay.
Yep. Other people are doing it, and the doctor prescribed it, so it must be good.
Right.
That's the cycle.
So and from an acute situation, if you have an acute situation, maybe okay, but from a chronic standpoint, it needs to be something. It's like the question needs to be asked, okay, doctor, how long do I need to take on this? And what do I need to do afterwards to rebuild everything, because it's going to damage something?
Or you start asking the questions, what can I take naturally in place of this? And they look at you funny.
Yeah, they'll look at you funny.
I go, what? And there's so many herbs, there's so many remedies that you can take to replace that.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
If people just took the time to learn that, you know, that it's all available. This is the medicine we've had it for before the last 100 years. And
for centuries.
The original.
Yeah.
Naturopathic medicine was the original way of life to treat all kinds of symptoms and stuff. But you never heard of all of these diseases. You really never even heard of cancer before the 1930s, 1920s.
Right. Yeah.
It's all, and when did they start vaccinating? I'm just going to say that.
Oh yeah, there's definitely correlations to all kinds of, like, you know, and again, I think there's a couple of different theories I have about how that all started, when that all started in the world wars, and how we wanted to become a power. And that's definitely where the protein push came, because it makes us bigger. You know, and I mean, as you travel, you notice, you know, Americans are bigger than anybody else.
Isn't that something?
And it's like, okay, well, we push protein, we push dairy, we push the things that we know are going to make us bigger. And then when you stop working out, what happens? You still get bigger. It's just in the wrong way. You know, and so it's like,
that's a good way of putting it. It's just in the wrong way. Yeah.
Right. And the damage that's happening inside, none of us can see until it blows that symptom, and it's like, whoa, okay. Whereas if you have the right tests and the doctor that can understand how to read the right tests, then you can see these things coming, and by far most things are preventable. So it's just having the right connections to be able to find the you know, stop it before it gets there. So
and you know, Invita has now a blood test designed that can detect up to 70 different cancer cells now, which is used to be 52. I go, what happened? He said, did Dr. Prado have another day off that he spent in the lab? And pretty much that was it. He's a scientist first and foremost. He wants to make sure that everyone has the same shot to get well again. You know, awesome. Give them the tools.
Well, Sandy, your story is amazing. I'm so glad that you're still here to be able to tell it.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, it is, and I mean, keep shouting. Like, you know, in anything else I can do to help you with that, I'd be glad to do that. So for the person that's heard this, that's like, I don't know if I can take that next step. I've tried so many things. I'm just tired. I'm just, you know, what's that one other thing that you could tell them, being on this other side, that can help give them that extra piece of motivation to get there?
That's a great question, because I think that the most important part obviously is your faith, but I think it's having the trust in your own body that if you're putting the right things in, you are stacking those odds in your favor. Every day is a gain. Every day is a do-over to make a win and to just alkaline. You can buy the alkaline strips right there at a drugstore, and you can watch your body changing day to day. And I talk to a lot of patients that they've exhausted all avenues with conventional medicine, and now they're coming to Envita on their last, legs. And, on literally on a hope and a prayer. And I say, the best thing you can do, they said, this is not like the other system. Right. This is a do-over. This is now your new beginning. This is the new normal for you to take those first steps. And the first thing you have to do is trust. Yeah. Trust that you're doing the right thing. Because when I made the decision to stop going to the Mayo, and I didn't realize the backlash we were going to get from just going with a known naturopath that was 26 years old, no track record, no nothing. I had to trust in what he was telling me was going to work. And like I said, I don't know if it's going, I didn't know for 100% for sure, but I trusted. And so you will make those gains. And I knew after just a few weeks, when my energy picked up, I didn't look like a cancer patient. I was still able to work. I was still able to go do my workouts, not like I was before, but different.
Right.
My quality of life was better. And I believe if you can improve your quality of life, that's everything. That's all you're looking for. When you're sick and you come from dis-ease in the body to now you're at ease and you're at peace. I think the biggest thing is you have to be at peace with whatever the outcome.
Right.
Because we don't know how long we're given. I don't know how long I'm going to be given. Yeah. But all I know is I'm at peace knowing I'm doing everything possible to ensure for my health, for the security of my health. I know I'm not going to give it up to anybody else. I own it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and that's that personal responsibility and using the discipline with it. And like you said, trusting that outside the norm is going to be okay, because unfortunately normal is sick.
Yes.
So
yes. And normal is, I don't know. I don't know what to do with you, and or we don't know what this is, but I think if you can find the root cause to everything, which is what Envita did. And now with the new healthcare plan, the Envita healthcare plan that's going to be available, we're going to be launching for individual families and for individuals in the fall. That's going to be a game changer, because now everyone has medical freedom. Everyone will have access to this. And that's how you make the changes necessary, is literally one person at a time. We launched this, and now we've already got 20,000 that are in the processing of onboarding right now, with a guarantee of 100,000 are lined up with companies. That it's amazing. The companies for employers groups want this for their employees. Why? Because the employees want integrative. So you can see in this evolution in medical freedom, we creating a revolution out of necessity, because, we should not be, the stats are showing now that we won't outlive our parents. And that's sad. So we've got to create this revolution that this is the new normal, and that we're going to be the loudest voice, not the advertisements on TV. Everybody can see through that and go, no. We're going to treat the whole body. We're going to get to the root cause of why this is going on, and we're going to help you get back on track. That's a perfect world, but that's where we're heading. That's
awesome. Well, I applaud you for all that you're doing. Again,
and you as well.
I'm so glad that you're here to tell your story. And if there's anything I can do to help you in the future, just don't hesitate to reach out.
I'm going to be reaching out to you when we have the new healthcare plan available for everybody. So everybody has access.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.